I was a math teacher. I had an identical twin sister. We had the same life plan. We're going to grow up, go to college, become math teachers. We both did that. Get married, have kids. We both did that. And live happily ever after. And the happily ever after part didn't quite happen that way. My father died. My dad and I were real soulmates. He was my rock. So his death was a big shock. He was in his 50s and had a big heart attack. I was having a really hard time with my grief. So somebody, I can't remember who, suggested, well, why don't you go to grief counseling? I loved it. I was learning all about dealing with emotions, which growing up, our family was very German and we didn't deal with emotions. Also didn't express a lot of affection. It was the beginning foundation of me being a psychotherapist.
Welcome back, everybody, through another episode of Through Help and Back. Very honored and pleased that you're here today, and very honored and pleased to be here myself today. I got to tell you, this is I'm a big believer in straight talk and transparency. This is a tough day to be here because if you could look out this window behind me, it is like 90 degrees outside. It is New England. It is the fall. The hills are alive. It's orange, it's red, it's yellow, and it's beautiful weather that you could actually go out and walk in and enjoy. And so I'm so thankful and blessed for the commitment you're making to listen to this show or to be here. But, I want my flowers too. I'm acknowledging my commitment because I'd like to be outside playing like everybody else right now, like the kids are. But I'm going to be in here and we're going to work and we're going to have an amazing show. Ian, how are you doing with that cognitive dissonance? Are you wishing you were somewhere else as well? Or are you fully present with me today?
I'm outside in spirit, but physically I'm here.
We should have done it outside. Why can't we
podcast?
Yeah.
You're right. We could.
I mean, I know the audio.
We have the equipment even for the audio.
Okay.
We could do that. That'd be a cool episode.
Okay, dude. So we're ruining it because we could have been out on the mountain there, right on the lake with the
Everyone that's listening, stick around. That's gonna be next time.
It's coming. We're gonna get out of this box and this horrible black background, and I'm gonna escape and get back to nature and get in contact with myself. So, no, but all jokes aside, it is beautiful here, and we're very honored to be with you. And it actually kind of fits. It's a really nice kind of segue into our guest today. Because we're talking about connecting to purpose, we're connecting to heart, and listening to our heart's true desires and where we'd really like to be. And, we have somebody with us who is really connected in that way. We're talking with Dr. Sharon Wesch today. And Dr. Cher, as she is often called, is a spiritual pioneer, focused specifically on radiant heart healing, which I have to tell you, I'm amazingly intrigued and curious about because I've been a therapist for about 20 years, and I've certainly heard of holistic healing. And I've heard of, connecting to your heart's purpose, but the radiant heart healing is a new concept for me. So I'm excited to learn about it. But Dr. Cher is an expert for many years, a PhD psychologist. So she has the traditional background, but she also has the holistic background and actually started one of the first holistic healing clinics in the Midwest. And so thanks to Dr. Cher for being here, and thanks to Dr. Jerry, for helping her out. He's done a lot of great tech support. And so it's a group effort. We're all here together. And Dr. Cher, I'm so honored to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I love speaking about my work. So this is going to be fun.
So what people don't know, but they're going to know really soon, is you are living this and you have a true passion for this. And this is like the real deal for you. Because sometimes, I won't name any names, Ian, just to be polite, but sometimes you feel like somebody's coming on, they read a book and they want to tell you what they read about in the book. But this is something that's been part of you.
Very accurate.
I've written about my work.
Yeah, no. And this is just who you are. And this is something that's been part of you for a very long time, right?
Yes, very long time. Let me say, I started out in a very traditional role. I grew up on a farm in Indiana. So I'm an Indiana farm girl, very grounded. And now I work in Sedona as a spiritual healer. So it's been an amazing journey. And I feel so blessed that I'm where I am right now.
And I bet it was a straight line, right from the farm to Sedona. There were no twists and turns or anything, right?
Absolutely not. All kinds of twists and turns, right?
Well, we start in the same place. I'm a bit of a farm boy from Southwest Ohio, so we actually have that in the Midwest in the background. So I don't know where you were in Indiana, but I know I've traveled a lot in Ohio into Indiana, and it doesn't seem much different. So I bet we have a lot in common in terms of where we started.
I grew up way north, almost right at the tip of Lake Michigan, near Gary, Chicago. So way north. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful up there by the lake for sure. And then, obviously Chicago and Gary, it gets a little bit different, but, an interesting place, probably a great place to grow up though, I would imagine.
It was. Yeah.
I'm always interested in everybody's background and what kind of like led them to healing in the first place. And you took the traditional route to be a psychologist. So what first motivated you or inspired you to study healing and invest in the healing arts and become a healer?
Okay, well, let me first say why I became a therapist, a psychologist. Originally, I was a math teacher. I had an identical twin sister. We had the same life plan. We're going to grow up, go to college, become math teachers. We both did that. Get married, have kids. We both did that. And live happily ever after. And the happily ever after part didn't quite happen that way as life takes its turns.
Yeah.
So I was married with 2 little kids, and I taught 5 years out of college. I got married right away, and then had the kids 5 years later. Was home with my kids for 5 years, and thinking about going back to teach math when my father died. And my dad and I were like real soulmates. He was my rock, and so his death was a big shock. He was in his 50s and had a big heart attack. This is in the early 70s, and I was 31. So that event just rocked my world. And I was having a really hard time with my grief. So somebody, I can't remember who, suggested, well, why don't you go to grief counseling? And my first thought was, counseling? I'm not crazy. I don't need counseling. I'm a math teacher. But my heart was hurting, so I thought, okay, I'll try it. So I went my first couple of sessions and absolutely fell headlong in love with outpatient psychotherapy. I just loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. The therapist would give me a book title to read. I'd go to the bookstore after my session, buy that one, 2 or 3 more, read all 4 of them before I came back the next week. I was a therapist's dream. I was a really motivated client.
You did your homework, yes.
I did. And I was learning all about dealing with emotions, which growing up, our family was very German and we didn't deal with emotions and also didn't express a lot of affection. So, and I learned about, a healthy way to deal with emotions and the whole idea that your early childhood is the foundation for what you become in life. And I didn't know that as a math teacher. So I was just thrilled to dive into being the client and change my life dramatically. Best thing I ever did for myself.
That's good. That's amazing. And I wonder, the field has progressed in some ways, and in other ways, what is old is new again, right? So I'm wondering if there was anything specific, a specific approach, a specific book, a specific technique that really helped you process that grief in a way that allowed you to move forward. Like what really connected with you? I
was really doing a lot of inner child work. And this was back in the 70s when transactional analysis was very popular. The book I'm Okay, You're Okay, which was pop psychology and games people play. But there was with transactional analysis, there was a pop psychology part and then there was a deeper clinical part. And I took the training in that organization to be a transactional analysis clinician. And I loved it. And it was the beginning foundation of me being a psychotherapist.
Yeah, and having been through the programs myself and all that, it's so funny how many of my classmates and myself, it's true, and now I'm hearing it from you. It's like a whole another part of the world opens up, right? You just don't even realize that subconscious level and what's going on behind the scenes. And
Absolutely.
When you start to get a peek, and it's just like you get so hungry to learn more and more and more because it's like, what else is there that I didn't know this whole time, So
that was exactly my experience. And I followed my heart, It was like I loved going every session. I loved reading all the books. Everyone around me said, you should stay a math teacher. My mother, my brother, my sister, my husband. friends all said, "You're crazy for wanting to become a therapist." And I didn't really care what they said because I I had such strong feelings of, I love this. I don't want to be a math teacher anymore. I love this, and I'm going to follow my heart. That was the most important thing I did, was I followed my heart.
And good for you, Sharon, because I mean, listen, I was not quite around to experience it directly, but in the 70s, I don't think that was a very easy thing to do, to kind of reject your husband's advice and your family's advice and leave the safe, stable job to follow your heart. There really wasn't a world around you that was encouraging that or supporting that.
No, I didn't have one person supporting me, and I didn't know anything yet about spirituality. So I just knew that this was so exciting to me. I couldn't not do it. I just had to do it. I felt pushed to do it.
Which is a nice feeling sometimes too, because it means you're probably pretty close to what you should be doing. If you feel that magnetic pull, it's like there's something there you should take a look at.
I am right on my path and have been for 50 years now.
Beautiful. Well, we can't all say that. I don't know that I felt that all the time. And Ian is a young guy. He's had some conversations. He's looking for his path. So to hear, I'm on my path and I feel comfortable in the direction life is going. I think that's what we're all looking for on some level. How, tell me a little bit about the switch though, because I mean, you were talking traditional transactional analysis, things like that, and then over into spirituality and healing. Was that a product of your continued experiences, your continued learning? How did that part of existence reveal itself to you and open up?
Okay, well, it was something that happened in my clinic. When I finished my doctorate, let's see, my dad had died, and then 2 years later, my identical twin sister got a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. And she and I were twins, so we were totally intertwined. And we were so close, I would get her symptoms. My left leg would go numb. And so she'd call me, we were living about 20 miles apart, so she'd call me up and she'd say, "I have a new MS symptom." And I'd say, "Yeah, let me tell you what it is. Your left leg's numb. It's been numb for 2 weeks." And she would say, "How do you know that?" And I'd say, "Because mine has been." And then once we talked, mine would go away. She'd still have it. So we were so close psychically, and we'd been raised to be like one person. So that was my motivation. It's like, I have to help her do something to slow down or heal this MS. So during my graduate work, I would ask everybody, "What do you know about MS? What do you know about chronic illnesses?" And I got led into holistic medicine. So a year after I finished my doctorate, I felt really called by spirit to start. I didn't know it was spirit, but I just felt this urge to start a holistic medical center in the cornfields of Indiana. Seriously, I was right at the big crossroads between I-65 going north and south and Route 30 going across. But I had cornfields out the back window of the clinic, and I felt right at home. It was farm country,
Right.
So this is 1984. March of 1984, I opened, and I had the information that nobody in this area of Northwest Indiana wanted holistic medicine. They didn't know what it was. They weren't looking for it. This is 40 years ago, and I just felt called to do it anyway for my twin. So I started, and I had already been introduced.
I'm just marveling at the bravery once again. It's like, there's such a theme emerging. Like everybody's going to zig. I'm going to zag. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing this, I
was always marching to the beat of my own drum,
Amazing.
Yeah. And it was because of my twin, and it was a calling. When I started, somebody asked me if I did a market survey to see if this would fly in Northwest Indiana. And I said, "No, I didn't do that because I didn't want that information. I already knew it wouldn't."
Yeah.
But I'm doing it anyway. Okay. So I would give speeches at the health food store and at the library, and I'm a really good speaker when I'm passionate about something. So in the audience, whatever audience I had, 20% of them would come as an initial client. And I already had some group therapy that I was doing before I opened the clinic. So I moved them into the clinic. And within 2 years, against all odds, I had a thriving business with 15 licensed professionals, all doing holistic medicine. And I felt like totally supported spiritually. It was like I would sit in the clinic and I would hold my heart and imagine these big golden angels from Egypt, the Hathor angels, work with me. And I would ask them, okay, I need help down here. I'm doing this big project. And I want you to go out and find the holistic practitioners that could come work for me and tell them to call me. I would get a phone call out of the blue. One of the first ones was a woman. She called up and she said, my husband and I are a husband and wife minister team. Our church is moving up right near your center. And we are both Reiki masters. And we want to come to the center and do Reiki. Well, my response was, oh, what's Reiki? What are you talking about? When she told me, I was like, oh, good, because I wanted a place that would provide modalities for the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And I figured I was not a spiritual person at that point. I didn't know I was.
You're a math teacher. Once a math teacher, always a math teacher, right? Like that's your background. So to break away from that and see these other ways. But it's so amazing that you were being sent things you didn't even know you needed, right? It was like...
Well, I think the angels brought it. The angels. I would pray to the angels. I have a philosophy of life that you work like it's all up to you. I'm a hard worker. And you pray like it's all up to God. So I do both. And that's, I think, my recipe for success in life. You do both. Pray like it's all up to God. Work like it's all up to you.
I love it. I'm stealing it. It's going on the fridge. It's so good. It's so good. You know.
So anyway, I would pray for the angels to bring me the practitioners I need, and they would call me up and say, "I hear you have a holistic center," and I would say, "Well, where did you hear that?" And they would say, "I don't remember. I don't know who told me. I'm sure it was the angels." But within 2 years, I had 15 licensed practitioners. We had a thriving business. I had more clients than I knew what to do with. And this place was just thriving. And we offered, I had 2 part-time medical doctors. I had massage. I had Reiki. I had counseling, inner child work, transactional analysis work. And people could be in one building and get all those different modalities. It was amazing. Amazing place.
And that's why I was asking my follow-up question, just because sometimes for the listeners, we get a little inside baseball, right? And kind of acronyms and things like that. But when you're talking about holistic healing and things like transactional analysis, can you give us a quick 101 on what you mean by that? I mean, was it just sort of like anything and everything? Was your goal variety, or did you have specific modalities that you felt covered each of those core areas?
In holistic medicine, the idea is the patient is responsible for their healing, and they need help in all 4 areas. They need to work with themselves physically, so changing their diets, a lot of supplements and diet changes. We had massage, we had acupuncture, we had homeopathy. With the mental and emotional, I was a PhD psychologist, so I could do both of those and hire other people to also work with me on that. And then with the spiritual part, it was all Reiki, because they called me up and volunteered, and I was like, oh, all right, Reiki. I don't even know what that was. Because when I opened, I didn't think of myself as a spiritual person. But let me tell you how I opened to knowing about energy and spirituality and
Please.
And spirit work.
And before you dive into it, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want the listeners to understand like how ahead of its time this project had to have been. Because I mean, I fell into this and understood this and got first introduced early 2000s in Dallas, Texas, There was a Ganino Wellness. Dr. Ganino was running it. And, like anything else in life, I had some stuff going on I had to deal with. I was looking for answers. I wasn't finding the answers in traditional medicine. And so you kind of get to a place where you're like, I got to figure this out. I got to try something new. And I was introduced to this, and it was a whole world that opened up to me. But all of these conversations, which are becoming more commonplace, I mean, you're talking about the early 80s in the middle of the Midwest. And I wasn't even like, I had been through like a master's program, was working on a doctorate, was, all these things. And I had no encounter with this until I stumbled into it in the early 2000s in Dallas, Texas. So I really want to give kind of a tip of the cap and just kind of acknowledge your presence in the field, because this was so far ahead of what everybody else was doing. So I hope people understand that.
I've been called a pioneer, and I don't think I really realized what a pioneer I was. Looking back, I'm like, oh my God, I took these big, big risks. But in the moment, it didn't feel like big risks. It felt like, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I would just do it. and so anyway, so I had these two Reiki people on staff. And about 3 weeks later, I had a client I'd been working with for weekly sessions who was going through a divorce. She comes in on a Friday afternoon. She was my last client, and she's talking about suicide. And she was absolutely serious about it. I asked her, do you have a plan? Yes, she had a noose hanging in her basement, and she's going to use it. So she just lived 5 miles from the clinic. So I said, all right, we're stopping the session. If you get in your car, go get the noose, bring it back to me, and no funny business coming and going. So she did that. And I had noticed in the clinic that if a client got something right before I worked with them, like if they got a massage or if they got acupuncture, and then I had a session right after, I could get farther. So I told her that, and I said, tomorrow morning on Saturday, I want you to come into the clinic, and you're going to do 3 one-hour sessions back to back. You're going to do a massage first for a full hour. Then you're going to do an hour of Reiki, and I explained what that would be like for her. And then I'm going to work with you to get you the shift in consciousness from I want to kill myself to I want to live. And I didn't tell her this, but in my mind, if she didn't get there, I was going to put her in a locked unit at the hospital several miles away. But I didn't tell her that.
Pink slipper.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she comes in the next morning, and there's 6 of us working in these little rooms. She starts a massage, and the rest of us are all seeing somebody else. 10 o'clock, she starts Reiki with the husband of the team. My client just does a no-show, which was quite rare. And the female Reiki practitioner, her client did a no-show also, which was also rare. So we're sitting in the staff room looking at each other. And I felt just intuitively to say to her, hey, why don't you give me a Reiki session? Because I didn't have you do that before you started here, and let's not waste the hours. So she said, fine. And I really think Spirit totally engineered this time that we would both be free to do that. It was a behind-the-scenes kind of thing that I didn't recognize in the moment, but looking back, I know Spirit arranged this.
No accidents.
No accidents, no. So the suicidal client's getting Reiki in one room of the building, and at the exact same time, I, the therapist, am getting a Reiki session as the client myself. And Reiki is this wonderful spiritual light that practitioners learn how to bring in and send through their hands to the client on the table. And that was my first session. I remember feeling just blissed out, like in a kind of a spiritual trance. And I felt very energized and also very inner peace at the same time, which is kind of an oxymoron. Like, how do you have both of those? But that's what I felt. So I finished, walked down the hall to the suicidal client. I walked in that room, walked over to the table where she's laying on her back. I leaned over and hugged her. I just was bent over double, hugging her on the healing table, the massage table. And as soon as I hugged her, she started crying, releasing. And I just held her because I was used to doing that kind of work. So she's crying, and I'm holding her. And then she stopped crying, and she said, my chest My chest feels filled up for the first time in my life. Then she went into this joyous laughter and announced, I want to live, like loud. And I'd only been in the room 3 minutes. I didn't use any of my PhD work. And I had this miracle transformation in 3 minutes without saying anything to her but how are you in her ear. And here I have this major transformation. And it was solid. She was never suicidal again. That was it. And I didn't say anything. So I had all these questions. It was such a phenomenal event. And we spent the rest of the hour talking about, all right, you decided to live, so how are you going to make your life better? But I had all these questions, like, what was that?
Yeah, what happened?
What happened here? Why did it happen to me? What am I supposed to do with this? And probably the most important question was, could I ever get it to happen again? And I didn't have any answers. I just had questions. So intuitively, I knew it had something to do with the idea of the experience that we both had Reiki right before. So I thought, all right, I'm going to go take Reiki training and find out what Reiki's all about. So I signed up for a woman in Chicago, Ethel Lombardi. She was, for those that know Reiki, Ethel was one of the 22 original people trained in Reiki in the whole United States by Mrs. Takata. So my lineage is Mrs. Takata, Ethel Lombardi, me. But it was an amazing experience to be in her class. And I suddenly learned this whole new idea of we are spiritual beings, we have an aura, we have a soul, we have chakras. I didn't know any of that when this experience happened to me. So I'm in this class thinking, what am I doing here? I have a PhD in clinical psych, and these people sound kind of nuts.
Yeah, you do feel like that at first, right? Like let's acknowledge it. When you first come in contact with information, it's mind blowing, right? And I was reminded of the comment that said, "Those who danced were called crazy by those who couldn't hear the music." Right? Like, so they're reacting to all the things that they're in now in their perception and reality, but they're not in my perception of reality. So I'm looking at them like, what? You guys are nuts. This is crazy, but it is real. And there's a lot behind it.
That was my experience. So, but I'm in the class and she starts talking about divine light. And that divine light is what people experience when they have a near-death experience. They go into this place of incredibly bright light and they feel this overwhelming love and they're in bliss as a spirit and they're going to stay there. And then Christ or an angel or shows up and says, sorry, not your time. You've got to go back, and boom, they're back in their bodies with the memory of the divine light. So in our culture, we've all heard those stories. We know about that place of divine light. It can be called heaven or the other side. But because it's about near death, people think I can't have the divine light till I'm dying. Then I get to have it. So this Reiki teacher is saying, anyone who wants to learn this can have the divine light while you're staying in your body, walking on the earth plane, and you can have it the rest of your life. And here's how you do it.
Amazing.
So that was my introduction to Reiki. And then one of the things that she said that is forever in my mind, she said, if you can get a transference of divine love into somebody's heart chakra, miracles will occur. Now, I'll say it one more time because that's the whole key to radiant heart healing. If you can get a transference of divine love into somebody's heart chakra, miracles will occur. So I got goosebumps from head to toe when I heard it. And I got this image of myself bending over that healing table, hugging the client. And what I suddenly understood was our heart chakras aligned in the hug.
Heart to heart.
Heart to heart. And we were both open from the Reiki, but I think Spirit sent me an extra push of divine love. The divine love. You see the light, you feel the love. So sent the divine love into my heart and it went into hers, she could feel it and said, my chest feels filled up for the first time in my life. I didn't feel anything.
Because you were the vessel. You were the transfer vessel.
Yeah, I was the vessel that God used to let this happen. And then my journey was figuring out what happened and how do I get it to happen again. So I finished the training, 3-day weekend, went back to my clinic where I had, many, I would see 60 people a week back then because I had this incredible energy flowing through me. I was like a whirling.
You're hugging everybody. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, I've got this gift to give,
Right. So I just put my hands on people's hearts and started sending Reiki energy into them. Every client I worked with. And I played with the energy, with real people. I'm pretty courageous. It's like I got this new tool, I'm going to use it.
I'm starting to figure that out. Yeah.
That I'm courageous.
That you're courageous and you're willing to take risks, and that you're inquisitive and curious. And if you it seems like if something comes into your awareness and it really grabs your attention, you're going to know everything you can know about it. You're not going to try it. You're going to learn it. You know what I mean?
So over a couple-year period, I developed this process that I now call radiant heart healing. And I use it from birth to death. I use it and everything in between. So it's really good for healing depression. It's good for healing early childhood traumas. I work with taking people back into the womb, where many people have felt as a baby in the womb, unloved, unwanted, and there's trauma there. And I know how to take them back in there and find that and release it. And I work with it with grief, with healing grief. What I've developed is a 4-step spiritual healing process. So let's talk about grief. When somebody comes to me in grief, which was the whole reason I got into this business, was my grief about my dad. But when I was doing my healing, I didn't know anything about energy work or spirituality. It was traditional therapy, but it did help me a lot. But what I tell all my clients is grief is a very heavy, heavy energy. People often feel like they have an elephant sitting on their chest. It's because the grief energy is filling their cells and it's heavy. So they sometimes say, I have an elephant sitting here, or I can't breathe, because they're just choking on the grief energy. So I help people learn how to open their heart. And we do some visualization to send that heavy grief energy out of the cells of their body using imagery and visualization. Give it a color, maybe it's black, maybe it's red. And they use their intuition to assess where it is. And then we energetically release it. I'm doing hands-on with them. Then after that release, then we bring in the divine love. This is something that I think is missing in clinical work. We were never taught to work with the God energy or the light. But the combination of releasing the human pain and then filling up energetically with the divine light raises people to a really high level. And then my expectation is, as their frequency is raised really high, that they will have their own encounter with the spirit of their loved one who passed. And that happens routinely in my sessions.
Yeah, no, because I'm thinking about that. I've experienced loss. And so when you say an encounter, is this like a goodbye? Is this a conversation? Is this just a sense of their spirit?
It's a hello.
Oh, okay. I have it backwards.
Yeah, it's a hello. And the spirit person is telling the grieving person, I'm okay over here. I'm happy. When they first get the image of their loved one, I'll say, and how does your father look? Well, he looks fine. He looks healthy. He looks joyous. And I say, yes, he is in this place of light, and he is full of joy, and he loves you from that place. And it's okay for you to know your father's a spirit and that you can communicate with him and that he's okay. And then you can let go of your grief. And I tell all my clients in grief, we are not here to suffer. We have grief because we deeply love, and then we're missing our loved one. But we need to clear that grief and fill up with the divine love, and then you can end the suffering.
Before we go on, I want to say a few words about Anu Behavioral Health. Anu Behavioral Health is an outpatient provider of mental health and substance abuse services in Ohio and New Hampshire. That means that Anu can successfully treat mental health and substance abuse issues or dual diagnosis if you're struggling with both. Their integrated approach allows for them to successfully address issues related to anxiety, depression, addiction, trauma, and really anything that stands between your life and the life you could be living. You really cannot bring them an issue that they have not successfully treated. They have also solved one of the biggest problems for people seeking help. They have a dedicated team waiting to hear from you at helpnow@anubh.com. If you contact them today, within 24 hours, you will have heard back from, wait for this, a real live person, and will also have your first appointment scheduled at that time. So how do you contact them? Well, if you're in Ohio or New Hampshire, you're probably close to one of their local locations. You're welcome to go in. If not, you can always reach them online at anewbh.com. And if you're interested in services for you or loved one, use that address, helpnow@anewbh.com. I've worked with people in grief, and that's a common theme that I hear is if I only knew that they were okay, or if I only knew that they were in a good place, some version of that, then I could breathe again, and I've never had any of these tools at my disposal. So I'm digging into the traditional processing stuff, which is honestly, I felt in the past is almost like just kind of soaking and reorganizing your grief, right? It's how to conceptualize those feelings and feel them in a healthy way that doesn't completely shut you down and end your life because somebody else's life has ended. But if they had just that moment of knowing, it would cure all that instantly. Yeah.
And what I teach people is there's a difference. There's two kinds of crying. There's crying where the person is releasing and feeling relief after they cry like that. And then there's other crying where I call it recycling their pain. And it's like they're crying, and they never get to the release part. So the whole time they're crying, they're re-injuring their heart because the pain energy is recycling instead of going out of them. So I teach all my clients the difference between those two. And I tell them, you're crying at home, you cry 10, 15 minutes and cry hard, you'll notice okay, it's gone now. I've released it. But if you cry for hours and end up with a headache and feel worse because you've been crying, you're recycling. You're not releasing your pain. And you need to learn how to release. But the visualization that I do with people is the release. So let me tell you how I got into spirit communication.
Tell me it all. Yes. No, I'm right here with you. This is awesome.
When my dad died, I had no connection to him. I didn't have any dreams. I didn't get any signs. I didn't get any visions. It's like he went in a dark hole and I couldn't find him. And I didn't know that was possible to have it be any different. Then 8 years later, my mother-in-law died, and I'd been married into the family for 20 years by that time, and she and I were just really close. I'm sure we had past lives together, family kind of bonding. And so when she died, I was just heartbroken. And then 2 days after her funeral, she showed up full blown in my living room. And I was just like, oh my God. I was laying on a couch. I was in the middle of my doctorate work. I was laying on the couch listening to a meditation tape, taking a break. And I'm in this trance, and I heard her voice. And first, her voice said, I'm here to say goodbye. And I went, oh my God. And I sat up, and I looked around, and there she was, full-blown spirit off to my left in my own living room. And she looked like an angel. It was her face, but she was only like looked like 30 years old. She'd lost her hair to chemo. And here she was, just this beautiful, radiant being. She looked like an angel. She had on a long white dress, and she was glowing, just glowing with light from the inside. And I'm looking at her like, oh my God. and people have often asked me if I was scared.
That was the question that was on the tip of my tongue. I was waiting for the moment to be like, were you scared at all? Because this feels like something that's like, we don't experience this every day, you know?
Oh, it was awesome. It was so awesome. I was just so happy and uplifted. It was like, oh my God, she's here and she knows me and she's alive. My first thought was, there is no death. She's right here. We buried her body, but she's right here and she's alive and she knows me and she's talking to me. And she always used to kiss me on the cheek. So she floated from where she was in the room right up to me, leaned down, kissed me on the cheek right here like she always did. And it felt the same. Felt like she was still alive. Like
You felt the kiss.
A real human kiss is what I felt. And then she leaned back up and floated past me, went through the entry doors of my house without opening them. I watched her fade through the wood. And
she's off.
Yeah, and she was gone. And I sat there just weeping for joy. It was this was probably 6 years. It was 82. So what is that, 40-something years ago? And I still remember the feeling. It was just the most awesome thing. And in my style of I have to learn about everything, I started. I bought every book on life after death and spirit communication. I started going to these conferences about that, week-long conferences up in Minneapolis. And I just jumped in full blown that spirit communication is wonderful, because I had such a different experience with my mother-in-law's death. I didn't have any grief after that.
And was it your awareness? Was it because you were because you're in a meditative state, you've studied more, you're learning more? Why do you think you were able to receive communication from her spirit and not your father's? Was it the relationship itself, or was it where you were in your evolution that allowed it to happen?
I think it was my evolution and also my mother-in-law's evolution. That she was a very spiritual person. My dad and I didn't have that spiritual thing. We had a religious thing,
Gotcha.
So I think it was about her and I, and I had raised my vibration a lot.
The bridge was built, right? She just had to walk across at that point. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So I started going to all these conferences, and I met a spiritual medium, and his name was Roy Waite, and I saw him for the first time. He brought through my spirit of my father and the spirit of my mother-in-law in this first session. They were so believable, really detailed and evidence-based. Like my father said, when I was there, I didn't know how to say I love you, which was true. But I would bring you gifts, give you gifts, like the blue bicycle for your 7th birthday. So it was so specific. It was like, it has to be him. How would the medium know that?
Nobody else would know. Yeah.
Nobody else would know. So I went to these conferences like every 6 months. So I had 4 different readings with the spiritual medium, same guy. And I wasn't telling anybody in Indiana. I had a huge clientele, but I was not talking about this.
Indiana wasn't ready for this just yet. Yeah.
But after 2 years of doing that, I thought, this is so helpful to me about my grief. I'm going to tell my clients. They've all got grief about parents dying. So I started one at a time, and everybody was like, oh, can we see the medium? Oh, that's exciting. Nobody got critical. And then I finally, and I would say, they would say, can we see the medium? And I'd say, yeah, you can go to the conference. And they would always say, oh, it's too expensive. I can't take a week off work. I finally told a group of 10. I had this Monday night group of 10 people. So I told them about the medium and getting these sessions. And they all started with, no, it's too expensive. Can we see him? No, it's too expensive. And one of them said, hey, could you bring him here? I was like, oh, all right. Maybe. So what a great idea. So I hadn't thought of it. So I called the conference people. I got the medium's full name and home phone number, which they wouldn't give that out now.
Back in the day, yeah.
This is almost 1990 by this time. So I called him up and I told him I've got all these clients that would like to sit with the medium. Will you come to my home in Indiana and work? And he said yes. So he would.
Of course,
right, meant to be. And and people loved him, loved these sessions with the medium. And so he ended up coming. I think he and I were like professional soulmates. He ended up coming to work in my home 4 days a month for 10 years, Jason.
Wow.
10 years. I had a medium working in my home and training me. So I got a free spiritual education and spirit communication and all things spiritual because I hooked up with this medium. And he and I just would fly together. I mean, we were a real duo. We were professional soulmates, I tell you. And so we did all this work with my clients. And then I gradually learned how to do it. Now, when Roy would do a reading, he would say, he would say to me, I see your father, he's standing behind you. Do you feel that? Feel him? And I'd say, no. And he'd say, well, your father says to tell you, da-da-da-da-da. And he would be getting all the images and the messages and telling.
So your father was there, but you couldn't receive it, but he could because he was more advanced and more open in some way that allowed. Yeah, okay. That's a comforting thought,
And then what would happen when I started doing all the grief work, when I raised my client's energy field, somehow it switched that instead of me getting the messages and the visions, the client does.
Like your twin again.
Yeah, and don't ask me how that happened because I don't know. It just did. And so when I do a grief session, first thing I do is I talk to him about, grief having an energy and that we're going to clear the energy of the grief out of the self. So we do the release work. Then we bring in the divine light. And then I do this visualization of taking the client up high out into the divine light on a pink cloud. And I suggest that there's going to be a spirit being who's going to come and let go of trying to figure out who it's going to be. Sometimes it's Christ, sometimes it's their loved one, sometimes it's an angel. We never know. It's so exciting.
Sometimes it's Christ. So what you're saying, and I'm right here with you. So when this divine light comes in and you guys are working with that, you have opportunities to meet angels, important figures from your life, even Christ himself. You've had interactions.
Yeah. And Christ, Mother Mary, big golden angels, white angels. We never know what's going to happen. But
and how does that process happen when you say bring the divine light in? Because like you said, in the old way was you have to like almost die. And so like, that's terrifying, right? Like, yeah, we've heard those stories. Someone drowned, declared clinically dead. They come back, they wake up. You're not going to believe what I saw. And they carry that around for the rest of their life. But you're telling me, and I know like there's probably a lot into it, but you're saying this is something that can happen consciously and intentionally with practice, that you can actually bring that light and go to that place on a regular basis.
Yes, and I guide the client in doing these visualizations of imagining the whole sky above where we are, whatever building, is this sparkling light, like when the sunlight shines on the water. And so first we tune into that light, and I ask them what color it is in their vision. And often it could be pure white, it could be golden, it could be, but it's always got this beautiful inner light with it. That's the light of God. So then we visualize, I direct them to visualize a big beam of it coming through the roof of the building, the ceiling, and coming into their crown as they're laying on a healing table. And then it floods their head, all the cells in their head, and they can see it and feel it with that happening. And then I help them bring it down, and we flood their chest cavity with it. And people have this experience of their chest kind of swelling and expanding. They can see the light and they can feel it. And then what I know is they are, the divine light ignites a spark of light that we already carry in our heart. It's kind of a secret. And then it ignites it and the heart radiates.
So I'm going to pause for a second because...
Why were you looking at me like that?
Well, so I was staring at Ian. Okay, so it's not about Ian, although I thought he was going to float up to the ceiling real quick. But no, so I have no knowledge. We're going to post this. This is going to be a thing. So you're talking about no accidents, Sharon. So I have no knowledge of this. This is the first time I'm encountering this information. But I want to show Ian and I want to post on the show my phone background, okay? Because the longest time ago, I found this picture that I just thought was cool. And I really connected with it. And it was just something, you flip through pictures and you look. And I looked at this one and I just kept looking at this picture over and over and over. And it's my phone background right now. I could go grab it. And it is a person out in a meadow, right? And they're kind of in a meditative kind of pose. And there is a beam of light that is coming down from the top. I kid you not. I will post the picture. We can share it on this episode. And it's almost like pink in my picture, but I didn't make the picture. It's just one I found. But he's sitting there, and there's a radiating light around the body, and the center of the body is lit up, the heart a little bit, but it's coming down through the head like you just described. So it's the reason I'm smirking and kind of looking at Ian while you're talking, I'm like, I've been carrying that around for 3 years, you know what I mean? 4 years maybe.
And now I'm telling you what it means.
and I
want to see it.
I'll show you after. Yeah, we'll post it. I promise. We'll show everybody, the listeners, everything, because now I'm feeling like I found a key to kind of unlock why that was interesting and important to me. I never knew. I just liked it.
Right. So you followed your heart, and that's what I teach. Radiant Heart is about connecting to the divine light and visualizing it coming in through their head, filling their heart, and expanding. And I'm the picture of radiant heart healing. I radiate light, and I have this.
Feel it.
Yeah, and I have this incredible energy. I guess I'm going to share this. I'm 81 years old. I feel 50.
I wouldn't have guessed that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't look 81, right?
No, you don't. And more than not looking, you don't seem 81.
No, I feel 50. And I'm in the prime of my career at 81. I work full time, and I get up every morning, and I'm so excited I get to do it again.
Because you've had that experience.
Every session's different. Let me just tell you that a session I just did last week. This man came in, and he was 71 years old. He was in terrible grief because his 19-year-old son, who he birthed at 53, had been killed on a motorcycle by a drunk driver. This was his only child, so he's in terrible, terrible, terrible grief. And so I explained the process to him, and I bring in the golden angels. I work always with the golden angels. Big, they're usually 6 to 10 feet tall, and big. They're from Egypt. So I explained those to him, and said we're going to bring them all around the table. And he said, "I see him." I said, "Now he's never done anything spiritual ever, or any kind of traditional counseling either." And I said, "You see him?" He goes, "Yeah, I see him." I said, "What do they look like?" He said, "Oh, they're just glowing gold, and they look like big football players." And I said, "Yeah, that's them." So he sees it. So then we do this. He sees his grief energy as black, and it's everywhere in his body. So we do this big release, and I set up that 2 of the golden angels were holding his feet at the bottom of the table. And he said, "I feel them pulling the grief energy out of me. They're working on me." And then he felt the angel hands all over his body, swishing the grief down through his feet. And he's reporting all this to me. I'm basically holding sacred space which means I'm not talking, but I'm working very hard to hold sacred space and keep the energy high. And so he has all this, he feels the angels sweeping their wings through him, cleaning out his body. Then we bring in the divine light, and he's just really good at it. He's powerful at visualizing, and he could see it and feel it, and it lit up his whole body, internal body, and lit up his heart. And then I do this visualization of taking him up on a pink cloud, way out into the universe, up into the divine light. and he's there, and he says, "Oh, I see my son." And he's laying on the healing table on his back, and his son's face came right 2 feet above his head, looking right at him. And he said, "I just see his face, but he's happy and he's full of joy. And he's telling me I'm okay, Dad." And then I started thinking about my client's mother. And then he says, "Oh, my mother is walking towards me up here in the light. And my dad's right beside her. They're both walking toward me, holding hands. They're together out there in the light." And then he sees the son join them, and they're doing this. The grandparents are holding, hugging the grandson. And
How wonderful.
this guy is just weeping for joy. He is like, "Oh my God, he's alive over there. My parents are alive, and I can see him." And the parents said to him, "Well, we're going to take care of our grandson. We've got him."
Exactly what you would want as a parent. At least, somebody's got them.
Somebody's got him, and
they're okay.
Yep. So then I bring him back down, and he is crying through this whole thing. He's just weeping quietly.
Releasing, yeah.
Releasing. And then at the end, he's crying for joy. He's not in grief anymore. He's crying for joy. And he was so shook. I had him first sit up on the edge of the table and let his feet hang, and I said, "Just sit there." And he could hardly walk to go from the table back to his chair because he was so, discombobulated, with all the healing energy.
And is touch part of that as well? Like, were you hugging him? Were you touching him? Were you just near?
I'm sitting at the head of the table with my hands on his.
So there's a little touch just to kind of connect, but yeah, okay.
And Spirit's doing all the work. I have learned somehow to bring Spirit in and let go and let Spirit do the work with my clients.
You use that term. What is Spirit? Is that the spirit and spirituality? Like, is that an actual entity? What is Spirit?
Spirit to me is another synonym for God. A lot of people don't like the word God because it's religion in the churches. So Spirit is that higher power, that God energy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And why I'm sorry, I'm just so I have a million questions. I can only ask you one at a time, right? So why is, it's in your name of your healing, the heart, the radiant heart, and you mentioned heart of 500 times, it's like, why is the heart so key? I know that as humans, we use the heart in that way. We say that touched my heart, or, you know what I mean? He speaks from the heart. So I know that's very central to us, quite literally. But I'm interested in the role of the heart and why the heart seems to be so vital to all of this.
Well, the most important capacity we can develop is the capacity to love, to both give and receive the energy of love in our hearts. So the heart is all about love, and it's about other feelings too. But when people are really in their heart and they've released their suffering and their pain, then they feel this sense of deep inner peace. It's a spiritual peace that when you feel it, it's just amazing. Some people have never felt it in their life, but they'll feel it in my session. And I believe that we are all here to create lives that are full of divine love, spiritual peace, and joy. And instead, people are living in a lot of negativity and negative feelings because they don't know that principle. They don't know that idea, that principle, and they don't know how to get there. Nobody teaches.
That's right.
How do you get there?
Yeah, no, I'm asking now. I've had a lot of training, and I'm like, how does this work?
One of the things I do is, I take the client through that process of bringing in the light and filling that heart. And then I have a recording that I send them through email. It's a 10-minute guided meditation where they follow my words and visualize the light coming in and filling their heart. And they don't have to remember how to do it because I'm guiding their step-by-step process. then once they do it enough, they don't need the recording anymore. Then they've got it. So I bring in the divine light probably 10 times a day. It's something that you do at least like brushing your teeth morning and night. It helps people sleep really soundly if they bring the light in before they go to bed.
You're connecting all day. You personally.
Well, yeah, because what I do before I see each client, I do 2-hour sessions. I connect with the golden angels and the divine light, and I bring it in and I feel myself, and I ask Spirit, help me with this client. Help me know where to go, with every client, I could go 10, 15 different directions just listening to them.
Right.
So which one do you pick? So I ask Spirit to guide my choices, and then I'll know exactly what to say and where to go with this client because I'm being directed by Spirit, which is much wiser than my little human brain.
Thy will be done, not my will be done, right?
Exactly. Yeah. My life is totally guided by Spirit. The work I do is guided by Spirit. My personal life is guided by Spirit. Spirit directed me to open a holistic clinic in 1984 when nobody wanted it.
Even before you knew what Spirit was, right?
Yeah, I didn't know yet. And
all of this, having seen what you've seen and knowing that experience, and forgive me if it's too abrupt or too far of a question, but when you think about death and the afterlife, you must have no fear.
Oh, I have no. That's right, no fear at all.
You're cool with it.
Yeah, and I have a connection with all these loved ones that are on the other side. So I hear from them sometimes through mediums, psychics. Sometimes I feel them myself. I'm not as good as people that are actually a professional medium, but my whole family's on the other side. I'm the only one left. My dad died when I was 31. My twin died next when we were 62. Then my mother died 2 years later, and my brother died last year. So they're all in the light, and I know they're all learning and growing over there. They're not sitting around eating bonbons on pink clouds. They're learning lessons. I know so much about the other side from 10 years of working with the media. And I have all these loved ones, like dear cancer patients who ended up transitioning. But when I'm working with another cancer patient, they're right with me. I feel them. They show up. And Christ shows up, and people that are clairvoyant see Mother Mary standing behind me as I work and sometimes merging into me so that the energy I'm sending to the client is Mother Mary energy. I work at a really high level, and I've dedicated my whole life to this. I mean, for years, I never thought about or did anything else but read spiritual books, go to spiritual conferences, do the work, healing work in the clinic, refine what I was learning, train other healers. And now I think the most important thing for me is I want to leave a legacy about reading heart. And, I've developed this, or Spirit developed it through me. That, I never would have been able to do this with my own little mind. Spirit brought me this and brought it through me, and I would just find myself saying things and doing things with a client, and then afterwards I think, where did that come from? Who said that?
Why through you? Why do you think you?
I think that's what my soul came here to do. We all have, I believe as a soul, we make choices before we ever come. We make a plan, we choose our family, we choose the emotional pain we're going to go through, which are our spirit lessons, soul lessons. And a whole lot of my lessons have been grief. It's like a theme in my life to overcome grief. So First, I had to heal it in myself, and then I teach others how to heal.
When you say we choose our family, I imagine some of my clients and even some of my friends would be like, I chose all these people? Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, especially that one family member, right? But it doesn't mean you chose them to have like smooth sailing. You chose them because there's something you need to learn from them. You needed to develop with them.
And when I see many people who come to see me, they've been through a lot of abuse, even in their emotional abuse in their own family. And their whole soul journey is, I want to go down to earth, experience abuse. The pain of it will push me to get out of it and to make the big shift of no more abuse. That's the spiritual lesson, is your pain pushes you to get over it, go to a different level. And see, my pain, my grief about my father, pushed me to go into therapy, and I changed my whole.
And other lives that have been changed by you, because of that, right?
Yeah, I've been doing this work for 50 years.
I mean, there's your legacy right there. I know we all want to leave that mark, and we all want to plant that flag, and we want to write that book, and we want to, but I think people who are healers and people who get into the healing arts, a lot of our legacy, and I know you've written several books yourself, and those, but I think a lot of our legacy is maybe unknown to us for quite a long time, because it's those little ripples that this client went off and here's what happened in their life and on their journey. And this client went off and here's what happened in their life and their journey. And we never see that, we never see that piece of it. So it's a very much a walk by faith, not by sight experience.
And before I left Indiana, I had from my original clients, I had some of their grandchildren coming to see me.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say, through the generations. But the ultimate endorsement of your work, right? If somebody will bring you your grandchildren, they really love the work you're doing. That's for sure, because they love those grandkids. All right. Well, listen, I mean, Ian, we're going to Arizona. I mean, this is crazy. We have to.
See me in Sedona.
I've got to come to Sedona. I've got to get Dr. Sharon. I got to feel
we got to see Jesus.
I got to, yes. Or who's ever waiting for us up there.
Sometimes the clients see them. Yeah.
But I mean, we've all had losses. We've all had things that we're trying to heal. And when we talk about no accidents, there's no accident that Dr. Sharon is here with us today, giving us this information. And that's amazing. So when people do want to connect with you, I'm joking about coming, but I'm kind of not. I don't know. We need to keep talking for sure. You've got plenty of time, though. You're only 81. So I've got plenty of time to get out there.
I have an intention. I'm going to work till I'm 100.
Okay, so we have 19 years to get out to Sedona and go see Dr. Sharon. But people who want to connect with you a little bit more quickly, how do they find you and how do they connect with you?
Okay, the most important thing they can do is text me at 847-809-5648.
You're cool throwing the number out? You're just going to...
Yeah.
You're good? Okay.
Business phone, 847-809-5648. If they call me, I'll return calls. I love to talk about my work. Love for people, healers, to come train with me, or for people who just want to work on themselves to come do that. And
we were going to get your Snapchat or your IG or something, and she went right for it. She's like, here's the digits. But hey, but why am I surprised? This is a woman who spent her entire life building connections. Why wouldn't she have a direct connection? You know what I mean? It makes perfect sense. So
right. And even my connection with you, it's through networking. There was another woman here in Sedona, Yuri, who told you about me. And I'm always networking. I was networking to go teach in London. That was a networking kind of thing. So it's always connections. And
isolation's great. I live up in New Hampshire. I go out in the mountains. I like solitude. I like some time. But I will tell you, we learned this after COVID and the pandemic and things like that. We have to connect. You have to find your tribe. You have to connect with other humans, other spirits. We're not great in isolation for extended periods of time. Go take your break. Go do your darkness journey, do the 4 days in the cabin, whatever you need to do to kind of reset. And especially in this technology world where we're being inundated with, just dead information all the time. But finding people that are of similar spirit and souls is just such a gift and a present. And I love every opportunity to connect. And I'm glad we found each other. It's amazing.
I am too. I call it finding your tribe.
We're honored to have you in our tribe, even if it's just for today. This was amazing and eye-opening. And some of these feel like hours that are like 5 hours long, and some of these hours feel like 5 minutes. And I got to tell you, Dr. Sher, this felt like 5 minutes. I mean, this was like,
Agreed.
I'm hungry for more, for sure. So maybe we'll do a part two. I was going to say, maybe we'll do a part two. Maybe we'll do a live shot from Sedona. I'm not kidding. I would love to go through this experience and see some of what you've seen. And I know it's funny. I talk about on the show with healers, real recognizes real. And I know you're the real deal, like just from connecting with you and talking with you, like this is legit. So we're going to keep that door wide open, and I might walk through that some door. So yeah. Is there anything you'd like to say with people listening before we go? I know that you've given out the number and things like that, but is there any sort of final message that you want to leave everybody with?
Well,
for this episode.
The most important thing you could do with your life is to open to a spiritual perspective, to explore books and classes and learn about what's going on at that higher level. You know, so many of us think I'm just a human being, and they're tuned out of this whole other realm. And I've been open to that other realm for 40 years, and it makes such a difference in your life. Life becomes more meaningful. Life becomes deeper. There's more love. There's more excitement. There's more joy. I mean, I couldn't be happier with how I live. And I love to teach other people to feel that also. And it's connecting to your own soul. Your soul is the most important part of you. It's the wisest part of you. And when you connect with it, it will guide you.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So I'm gonna do what I don't do very well, and I'm gonna try to stay out of the way of that and not step all over that. And I'm gonna leave that right there because that was so good. And Dr. Sharon, she's such a pro. She went right down the barrel into the camera, like I'm talking right to you. You know what I mean? So I felt that. And Dr. Sharon, thank you so much. I'm just honored by your presence and your work, and keep doing it. We're going to keep talking. I'm just forever grateful for whatever brought us together. And I'm so glad that we know each other now. So thank you for coming by.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, Ian, thank you. Smooth sailing as always. Life was good on the production side. We're going to get out. We're going to get some of that sunshine. We're going to try to connect and enrich our spirit here. But before we go, I want to thank you guys listening and watching. There's no show if nobody's watching, and you guys are here and you're spending your time with us. And from my perspective, this was an hour very well spent. But it's your most valuable resource. And so I hope you feel the same. Please connect with Dr. Sharon if you get a chance. Think about our sponsors. If you're in Ohio, New Hampshire, connect with them. But find your tribe, find yourself, take these lessons to heart, because all of the things that Dr. Sharon were describing, more joy, better connection to self, just a more fulfilled experience. I think that's what we're all searching for. So until the next time, take care of yourself, take care of your spirit, take care of your soul, and take care of each other. Thanks so much. Hey guys, although Through Helping Back is an excellent podcast with a lot of great ideas, I do want to let you know that in no way is Through Helping Back expected to be perceived as or relied upon in any way as specific medical advice or mental health advice for you personally. The information provided through Helping Back on our website or our podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment that can be provided by your own providers. Do not use our content in lieu of professional advice given by qualified medical professionals, and do not disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking professional advice because of the information you have read on our website, heard on our podcast, or otherwise received from us. Although we love discussing issues related to healthcare, mental health, and addiction, we are not providing direct healthcare, mental health care, medical, or nutrition therapy services. We're not attempting to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure in any manner whatsoever any physical or psychological ailment, any mental or emotional issue, disease, or condition. We are not giving you specific medical, psychological, or religious advice whatsoever. Please take care of yourself and take care of others as you always seek the advice of your own medical providers and your own mental health providers regarding any questions or concerns you have about your specific health, or before implementing any recommendations or suggestions from us. These are ideas that have worked for other people. We think it's important to share them. We do not guarantee that they will work for you specifically. Do not stop taking any medications without speaking to your physician. nurse practitioner, physician assistant, mental health provider, or any other healthcare or medical professional. And if you have or suspect that you have a medical or mental health issue, contact your own healthcare provider promptly. Also, one last thing, if you know or suspect that you are currently experiencing a crisis, it is absolutely imperative that you seek the advice of your doctor or other emergency healthcare services prior to ever thinking about using our content. We love the conversations. We're glad you're stopping by. We hope you take a lot from the content. But again, for your specific individual medical situation, please always seek quality personal care from your own providers. Do not let this information or this advice stand on its own. Thanks so much for listening.